Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's March the 6th, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com. We got the whole team together this morning, Izubee Charles, Stephen Wagner, and Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day. And guys, it's really the news of the weekend. What a weekend we had at CaneSport.com. Stephen, you, I guess, began the weekend in Fort Lauderdale, made it down to Coral Gables, somehow ended up within about 8 hours up in Orlando for the Under Armour Orlando camp, and made it back last evening. Matt, you're all over the place as usual, out on the high seas, catching crabs, covering spring practice, so forth and so on. Izubee, I'm going to skip the hot date that you had on Friday. We will not discuss that on this show, but obviously a busy weekend for you as well. Spring practice, the King's Junior Day, and myself, who spent the weekend at the beach. So all in all, great weekend amongst us all, and we've got a lot to talk to you about this morning. Guys, I thought we would start with the start of spring practice on Saturday. Saturday was a huge day out at the U, not just the start of spring practice, but it was a huge junior day. Hundreds of kids pouring into the Hecht and the Schwartz athletic centers to get to know the coaches, become acquainted with the Miami program, take campus tours. And it started at like 7:30 in the morning Saturday, and I think the last kids left at ballpark 10 o'clock at night. So just a whirlwind day for the staff. And then in the middle of it was the first day of spring practice. And a little bit of a tough practice for us to cover, Matt. Wake up, Matt, down there. You, man, I'm talking to you. You all right?
Yeah, what's up?
No, you look a little rattled down there. So anyway, a lot of people out on the practice field. Okay, it was really, really hard for us to cover practice the way we normally would. We were limited mostly to the offensive side of the field. We couldn't go do a lot on the defensive side because there were about 400 people over there blocking the path, and just a crazy day out of Green Tree. But we did get to see a few things that I thought were encouraging. I thought that the quarterbacks were throwing the ball relatively accurately for the first day of spring. Tyler Van Dyke was typical Tyler Van Dyke. I have phenomenal news to report to everybody that thinks that I don't like Ja'Carri Brown. He looked much better out there on Saturday than he looked at most times last year. So maybe his mechanics are starting to get cleaned up a little bit. And the talk of everybody was Emory Williams. I mean, for a true freshman coming in as a quarterback to look as solid as he looked throwing the football on day one was certainly a very encouraging sign. Matt, I'm going to turn it over to you and give us your take on the opening day of spring practice.
Well, as expected, it was terrible. I showed up and immediately several reporters, including a couple of bloggers, started telling me how they loved my shtick on my morning show with you, and now Stephen and Izubee, and how I'm so, my shtick is how I don't want to be here, and I'm so negative. It's genius of me. Genius, they say. Wow, it's so entertaining. I said to them, it's not a shtick. It's how I actually. I've never been happier than when Gary kicked me off the show for 10 minutes last show, and I got to relax a little bit. They actually believe that this is made up somehow, that I'm actually a really happy person who loves being on the show every morning and just, whatever. It's all roses and sunshine according to these people. But no, it's not. It's, whatever. This is my job. I got to be here, so I'll do what I'm supposed to do. So here's what happened. I show up on Saturday. I get accosted by all these reporters telling me how amazing I am with my shtick. And then I got there an hour early because I'm trying to do my job and I'm trying to get a roster from the people who make the rosters. And apparently those people no longer exist because the roster that we were given, wasn't given to us. I literally saw them in the box, okay, next to the sports information person. they're in a box, a huge stack of rosters. And, as is normal every spring practice, oh, can I grab a roster? No. Okay, when can we possibly see a roster? It would be great. Fans are very excited about spring practice. They really want to know the number changes, the new heights and weights. It's not for me personally. I don't care if I get a roster. It's for the fan base. It's to get them excited about spring football. They love this stuff. You'll get it when you get in the field. Fantastic, because I personally don't care. You want to screw the fans? Screw the fans. Then 5 minutes before we go on the field, I won't name names, but whoever the sports information.
Please don't name names. But this is a God-honest, true story.
I don't tell lies.
And in my 4 decades of covering my football, I have never seen anything like it.
So 5 minutes before we all go on the field, he says, "Every reporter, gather around me right now." And the sports information person starts basically giving a lecture like I'm back in high school, what you can't do. I'm going to give you a roster, but you can't put it on social media. I'm going to give you a roster, but the heights and weights are not updated for any of you. So don't even bother trying to tell anybody what the new heights and weights are. We'll give them to you at some point in the future, maybe next week. Don't go past this tent. For some reason, this tent was like a cutoff. I guess they had set up reporter mines past this tent, where if you walk past the tent, you would spontaneously explode.
Steve was laughing. You weren't out there, Stephen, because you were talking to recruits. This is a God-honest, true story. Okay, this is he is not making any of this up. Go ahead, Matt.
Don't go after this whole lecture. We finally get out there. Don't go past those tents to go see the defensive side of the field. We can only watch the offense a little bit. Oh, and by the way, don't try to videotape the quarterbacks until they're actually throwing a pass, because apparently opponents, all they want to see is what happens before they throw a pass, where they just get a ball from some random stranger who's, on scholarship as an agent, as a trainer, because apparently that's all opponents need to know. They don't need to see the guys throwing the pass, how they throw. Opponents don't need to see that. All they need to see is some student trainer throw the ball up to the quarterback and the quarterback catch it. Don't videotape that part. God forbid the Miami Hurricanes would have won 0 games this year if any of us had videotaped that. Thank God we didn't. There were several other totally arcane rules. It was ridiculous and embarrassing, honestly, as a Miami reporter. This used to be a program that prided itself in, we are one of the only programs in the country that have an open locker room. We're one of the only programs in the country that let you talk to anybody you want, and they will say whatever, and that's how we roll, because we have swag. We trust our student athletes to say the right things, or at least speak their minds. If they see something wrong, they're free to tell you. Now it's like scaredy cat city in Coral Gables. I've never seen anything like it. It upsets me, quite frankly, not for myself, but for the fans, because this is costing every one of you out there opportunities. We watched 25 minutes of spring practice. I've never, in my 500 years of covering this team, seen a first spring practice in shorts where guys are just running around with helmets on, and you have 500,000 recruits, their parents, and coaches watching the whole thing, where reporters are told, you can watch 25 minutes of basically nothing and then leave. How does that help the fans get excited about a team that I think will be great in a couple of years? I don't understand why. I would love to get an explanation, but all I was told is don't go past the tent. Then I see some reporters going past the tent. So I'm like, screw this. I'm going to try to get some fans, some actual news from the defensive side of the field. I start to walk over there, and Mr. Sports Information, I hear him yell, Shodell! Like I'm the only person they're watching, apparently. That's all that matters. Don't let Shodell go into the minefield, because if Shodell's killed by the mines, then the fans might be upset. Roster, everything else, If Shodell dies in the minefield that's apparently past his tent, everyone will be really upset. That was my experience. I was not happy with how it was run. I was happy with what I saw. I love the new drills the coaches are teaching in the 25 minutes we watched it. I would have liked to see more, because, quite frankly, we're the conduit, and so is every other reporter, between the program and the fans. They want to be the conduit, I guess, for you guys, but what information do they ever give out that's actually truthful? I mean, in the 25 minutes we had out there, we gave you a first-team offensive depth chart.
Izubee, don't fall asleep. He's almost done.
We gave you a second team.
And they say I'm the one who talked too long. Are you serious?
This is worthy of a Matt rant. Seriously, it is worthy.
We
That's
gave
why
you
I
a
had to cut him off once.
We gave you a second-team offensive depth chart. We even figured out, I wrote down in 25 minutes, not only did I get those 2 depth charts, Gary's filming, Izubee and Steven are bothering every recruit they can find out in the street. Not only that, I wrote down every single number through my binoculars on the far defensive side of the field where the minefield was set up for reporters. I wrote down every single number in every single group and then cross-referenced it against the roster to try and get the injuries and who was missing. So we posted the injuries. On the offensive side, obviously, Toronto Citizens, Zion Nelson, we're not participating. Zion's got a recurrent knee issue. They're trying to get him back in the fall. I honestly am not overly optimistic on that from things I've heard. Ray Joseph was in a red jersey. Elijah Arroyo wasn't out there. We didn't see Frank Ladson out there. Javion Cohen was in Indianapolis. He'll be back this week. Defense, based on my amazing reporting skills, the guys that weren't participating, Akeem Messidor, Jafari Harvey, James Williams, Chase Smith, Leonard Taylor, and Jared Harrison Hunt. So basically, they're going to practice with no defensive line and 2 running backs all spring, which, based on us not being able to watch anything anyway, as of now, whatever. I am beyond upset that this was no longer let the media get some nice photos for the fans. Let the media get some actual information that'll make fans excited about this program. Look, I'm done, but that's it. I don't want to talk anymore the rest of the morning. You guys can do the rest. I put everything in a nutshell. That's it. I'm a little irate. I've never said anything like it. And Shodell out. Whatever you want to say. I don't know.
Well, it was unique to say the least. But from what we did see, we like what we saw. Some of the new drills the receivers were doing with Kevin Beard. That looked pretty good. The quarterbacks looked pretty good. I like the fact that we were so worried. A lot of fans were worried as spring practice approached that Mario was taking so long to hire his coordinator that they weren't going to be able to install any offense. Well, the first practice of spring, they walked out on the field and they were executing a 2-minute drill with signals coming in from the sideline and everything. I mean, I was shocked to see that. That means they've put in a lot of prep time. Getting to that point, my guess is Tyler Van Dyke has been sleeping in Shannon Dawson's office, but really all the quarterbacks, because they were on top of their stuff. The plays were getting in. They were running the plays. Everybody knew what they were doing. It was very well organized from what we could tell. And considering all the new coaches and the change that's been taking place, I personally thought that was very impressive. I was expecting a lot more disarray. If you want to be upset about something, I can't even begin to tell you how many drop passes that we saw. Now, not all were by scholarship players. There were some walk-ons out there dropping passes too, but an inordinate number of drops, which I guess is kind of somewhat to be expected for the early part of spring practice. But you got to hope they get that cleaned up here really, really soon. In fact, somebody on the message boards was commenting that it seemed like every pass that Jakari threw was dropped, and it did seem like that at times. I'm not sure I would blame Jakari for all of those, but it was a little ragged out there when they were throwing and catching the football. Let's put it that way. But I thought Don Chaney, Matt, looked good running around, considering he's off the injured list. Izubee, you were out there. Anything stand out to you?
Yeah, what stood out to me really was just seeing how hands-on Coach Dawson was with the quarterbacks. And it's kind of different from what we saw last year with Coach Gaddis, because obviously he was, based around the wide receiver. So Ponce was really with the quarterback. So just seeing the offensive coordinator, I took a video. You see him, arms crossed, just looking at all his quarterbacks, and then you look to the right, you see Kevin Beard working with receivers. So just seeing that fluidity with, hey, Coach Dawson is focused with the quarterbacks, Coach Beard's focused with the wide receivers, and all the other position groups are with their position coach. So seeing that fluidity and just how they were teaching, how they were so hands-on with their guys was really something that I liked. That was a little bit different from what I saw last year during fall camp and all that stuff.
Yeah, and so that spring practice number 2 is Tuesday, number 3 is Thursday. My suspicion is that there will be less people out there watching, and maybe we'll get to move around a little bit more. Maybe we'll even get to watch an extra period or two. I hope that they'll listen to Matt's rant and treat us a little bit better than we were treated at practice.
Gary, have you ever seen anything like that in your life?
No, I have not.
The way the media was treated like the enemy, like we are going to do something like that we don't know how to do already. It was bizarre.
It was bizarre. And honestly, I feel for the stress that the sports information office is clearly feeling. I don't, quite understand that, Mario's tough, but man, can he possibly be that tough? I don't know, but
Mario's a teddy bear underneath. He wants to get the program back to where it should be, but he was part of the program as a coach and a player from that whole system where it was go talk to whoever you want media. Every practice is open media. They used to have literally keep their practices open to the media because they felt it made the players work that much harder, that other eyes were on them, not just coaches and players. Like that was the whole thing. They wanted us out there because they felt like when other eyes are watching, reporters' eyes who are going to be writing stuff about the players, it makes them go that much harder. Now it's like, don't record the quarterbacks getting the ball in their hands? I mean, are you scared about that for real? Like, that's the last thing you should be worried about in spring practice, as whoever is giving the directives from the office to the sports information person should have been like, no, this is ridiculous. You know, I mean, how? And I even asked the sports information person because I was irate. I said, after he gave his 5-minute lecture, I said to him, I said, did you practice? I actually said this. I said, did you practice that in the mirror last night? That whole speech? He said, he looks at me, he says, Shodell, I just winged it. He definitely practiced in the mirror. He definitely practiced in the mirror for like a week. There's no doubt. Okay. And he said,
I feel for him though. I really do. He was so stressed out. I don't, you know, the only thing I saw that I could understand them not wanting us to film was the signals that they were sending the quarterbacks in period. You know, totally understandable why they didn't want that period filmed. But I don't know. From there, it seemed like pretty basic drills. So I didn't, you know, I don't know. But all in all, at least spring practice is underway. It was very well organized. Good work taking place on the practice field. And hopefully, as we get into practices 2 and 3 this week, we will be able to give you some more, you know, hard specifics. We're not going to, sit here and blow smoke.
Oh, and by the way, just to emphasize, it ran really smoothly for a whole new staff. They were doing some great drills. Like there was a really good, intense footwork, quick pass drill, foot placement, hitting the net in the right spots and all that stuff. Players were excited to be out there. I mean, the quarterbacks were literally cheering each other on to get the ball in the net in the right spot and their 3 consecutive throws. I mean, giving each other high fives. Like it was a different enthusiasm level than I saw at any point last year, which to me is very important because Gary can say how great they looked. It's the first day of spring in shorts and a helmet. I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, wow, Jakari's amazing this year. Like, I'm not going to do that. But what you can sense is that this team really seems like it had fun for once. Last year, we constantly were saying this team's not having fun. This team looks like it's just dreading having to play a game. Gary and I both heard reports of different people, players who were starters, that didn't want to play, literally were faking injuries to not play or just saying, hey, coach, I can't play, I'm hurt or whatever, that I think those days are behind Miami, thank God. And, and I also like the best comment to me of the whole post-spring, which is a lot of nonsense what these players say, but I don't want to talk too much, but like Tyler Van Dyke, that's the last thing I'm going to say the whole show. So Tyler Van Dyke.
He's already talked 16 out of the 17.
Yeah, I'm done after this. This is it. This is the end. The other 20, 30 minutes you guys can do. So Tyler Van Dyke, after people, a lot of people that probably didn't pick this up, okay, but after the practice was the availability, and he said something along, I don't have the quote right in front of me, but he said something along the lines of working with the new offensive coordinator, Shannon Awesome, that it was, that he wasn't critical and that was nice. He's like just sort of said it like that. He's not too critical, which was nice. And it's, what I heard from last year was a big issue in the quarterback's room was that Josh Gaddis was super hypercritical of every little thing the quarterback did and very little praise for these guys and just constantly beating them down. So to me, it was a thinly veiled thank you to Mario for bringing in a guy, Shannon Dawson, who it seems like the quarterbacks actually like. I hate to take shots at the guy that left, but like, there's no doubt. I know for a fact, at least a couple of these quarterbacks did not like the offensive coordinator, did not like the way the coordinator and quarterbacks coach interacted with each other and with the players. So it's really nice to hear that. There's a ton of positives, aside from how the media was treated, a ton of positives from the first practice. But again, don't read into it too much. It was just the first practice. But like Gary said, a lot was put in, shockingly, with a brand new coaching staff, which is fantastic. And I'm done, by the way. That's it. So nobody complain about how much I talked. Next 30 minutes are all you guys.
Contrary to the impressions now, that we have a ton of coverage on the website, that if you didn't get through it all on the weekend, Izubee and I shot a ton of video at practice. That's on the website and on our YouTube channel. We got a bunch of stories, interviews with Mario, Cam Kinchins, Tyler Van Dyke. That's all on the website. So make sure if you haven't already checked that out, you get yourself caught up on everything that we could tell you about the opening spring practice. But Saturday was also Junior Day out at the U, and that's one of the biggest recruiting days of the year, probably the second biggest. I would say Paradise Camp is probably number one. But we were out there in full force from sunrise to well past sunset. And guys, the one thing that was really notable to me, that stood out to me as much as anything, is we're staying out there in the morning and talking to recruits and taking pictures and everything else. But a big truck pulls up out in front of the Heck Center, and they start unloading equipment. And I have never seen so much audio video equipment come off one truck in my life. And they started wheeling it all into the old gym where the volleyball team plays now. They call the Knight Center. And inside the gym, they had the whole floor covered with plastic so that the floor didn't get damaged. And they turned this big gym into a studio with all kinds of crazy backdrops and AV equipment and stuff like that. And I snagged a couple pictures just to give you guys an idea of the kind of stuff they were producing. Like, here's a picture of a recruit and his mom with this LED big screen behind them showing off graphics. This one really impressed me. They had built this big mural of all the former greats in Miami football history, and Mario was obviously there all day, shooting pictures with recruits as part of Junior Day. But the thing that blows my mind is what an audio video production that college football recruiting has become. And it's really it's about NIL for sure, but it's also about the edits. And Izubee, you're a millennial, I know you love your social media and stuff. Explain to everybody why these edits have become such an important element in recruiting young high school football players.
Yeah, so when you see those, edit videos going on, Instagram, Twitter, it just builds a hype around the program. You see, a top 5-star guy or 4-star guy at, the U thrown up with you with Coach Cristobal. You see these cool backdrops, these cool uniforms. It just kind of builds up, hype around the program. Say, oh, hey, maybe Miami's somewhere I have to check out. Look at this video of this guy doing this or this guy doing that. So it's just pretty much, real important nowadays with social media taking over and just building a brand for the program. We already know Miami has one of the best brands in the country in college football with the U. So this is just adding on to it. Hey, we got these big guys coming. And look what we did with this photo shoot. Look what we did with that photo shoot. You see the other schools, where they're releasing a leaked footage of this guy in the uniform and how does he look. So it kind of just, I feel like it builds hype, builds momentum around the program and what they're doing and when they have kids on campus.
I don't know what the AV bill was for Junior Day, but I'd be willing to bet it was up there well into the tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, when you look at the graphics, the resources, the equipment that was going in there, they had 3 or 4 different sets. It had to be huge, and it's becoming a bigger and bigger part of the recruiting budget. They have several graphic artists on staff, several video production people on staff. The Miami Athletic Department has almost become a multimedia production of its own. I mean, obviously all the games are on networks and stuff, but huge stuff going on. All right, so Stephen, let's get to you a little bit here. You were on the front lines greeting recruits as they arrived at the U on Saturday. What impressions of Junior Day did you take home with you before you woke up at 6 a.m. to hit the road to Orlando to go to the Under Armour Orlando camp?
Well, my first impression was that if this thing doesn't work out, I have a very bright future as a Walmart greeter, because I'm not kidding. I was talking with another reporter there. Like me, I'll say it, Manny Navarro from The Athletic, because he's got a good sense of humor and he'll enjoy this. Me and him are standing up there out front, like seeing these kids as they come in, and a couple of guys walk by, and we're standing on either side of these guys, as they're walking down the walkway, and they look at us and we kind of look at them and we go, hi. And Manny keeps on going, hi, welcome to Miami. And all of a sudden, we start shaking hands and stuff. And at that point, I just stopped and I turned and I looked at him and I said, what are we doing here, man? Are we Walmart greeters or something? It was a very, very weird way to start my day at 7:45 in the morning. But it's the way my day started nonetheless. The good news, though, is this Walmart greeter face apparently is decently recognizable and actually can talk to recruits after all. And there were a lot of kids here to talk to. There were definitely some who have stuck out on the priority list for Miami for some time now. Some names that people would know, like King Joseph Edwards, T.A. Cunningham, LaWayne McCoy, just a couple off the top of my head. Brandon Baker was another one who was also there at Miami. And more generally speaking, it felt like things went pretty well for a lot of these kids. Pretty much everyone that I talked to said, whenever I had the chance to ask them, hey, how did this visit go for you more generally? How did it affect your interest level in Miami? Everyone said, oh yeah, it definitely raised it a little bit. This is definitely something that that helped put Miami a little bit higher on my radar. There's some kids who haven't or who don't have offers yet, who are hoping to get offers in the near future. Wrote about that in the recruiting notebook that you can check out on the website, the recruiting notebook from Miami's junior day. There's all sorts of great information, great tidbits in there, really just breaking down a lot of that stuff. And we're also going to have a boatload of stories rolling in this week, also from Miami's junior day, because we had a lot of kids there that I think a lot of fans, and especially, recruiting nerds like myself, a lot of names that those people are going to recognize too.
So any individual guys just jump out at you, or to where you were left with the impression Miami has to get this guy?
Couple guys I think Miami has to get. I think first one would probably be LaWayne McCoy. We knew that he was a really explosive kid, really, really talented. He's rated as kind of like a low to mid-level 4-star, but he has like tremendous potential. And we found out Miami's pretty freaking high on him too. He's starting to feel like a guy that Miami really wants to get. I think we put in the recruiting notebook that, they're kind of hoping, hey, maybe LaWayne McCoy might be the guy who, they can get to commit first in the 2024 class and really just get that ball rolling. He was definitely the first one that really stood out to me. I think T.A. Cunningham, edge rusher from Mater Dei out in California, I think he's another guy that Miami really is going to need to get, just because last season, I think they ended up signing 3 total edges and defensive linemen out of high school, with Ruben Bay and Collins Achiampong, and then big old Josh Horton in the middle. So the defensive line and the edge is definitely something that they're going to need to continue to push to recruit here in the 2024 class. And then Brandon Baker, also from Mater Dei, but on the offensive line, he's one of the top offensive tackles in the country. We saw Miami have a lot of success recruiting the offensive tackle position last year with Francis Malgoa and Samson Okinola. And it definitely feels like Brandon Baker's a guy that they're going to want to try to get in this 2024 class too. And if you'll look at that recruiting notebook, you'll see we embedded a tweet in there that Brandon Baker put out after his visit that was kind of cryptic, and he kind of hinted at, is this place going to be home for me in the long term? Now, of course, there is a long, long, long road ahead in his recruitment for whichever program is going to get him. That very well might be a Pac-12 program too. That might be Oregon, that might be USC, that might be Ohio State, that might be Georgia, that might be Alabama, that could be anyone in the country. But you certainly have to feel good about the spot that Miami's in with that kid after this visit.
You mentioned I know you had a chance to watch him in action up in Orlando on Sunday, and he was universally considered the top receiver at that Under Armour Orlando camp. And it's interesting because this is a year, obviously, where you've got Josiah Trader and Jeremiah Smith of Chaminade, considered by everyone the top 2 receivers in South Florida. But McCoy is making some noise. And, you've now had a chance to watch him. Izubee, you've seen all 3 of them. Well, actually, I guess you have not. Yeah, you've seen all 3 of them, I guess, in action on the field. Does McCoy stack up with Smith and Trader as a pure athlete receiver?
I don't think he as highly touted and oh, he's making this play as Smith and Trader, but I'm not saying he's too far off. The thing with McCoy is he's a really good two-way player, and like I said, he's not the most explosive guy, he's not the highest jumping guy, but he just finds a way to make catches and gets open, and that's what I love about him. He has that kind of grit factor that, hey, I might not be faster than you, I might not be bigger than you, but I'm going to go up and get this ball, and that's something that I've saw from him for day one, and that's why I've always said, hey, this is a guy I think Miami should really be after. And, after he got that offer, he's saying, okay, things are starting to pick up and more schools are after him. So it's kind of making it interesting. But with McCoy, I just really like the grit that he brings to the field. Like I said, not the biggest, not the strongest, but he's going to make that catch. And he's going to let you know he's having fun too. He's going to bring that swagger. He's going to celebrate a little bit. And that's just a few things that I love about McCoy.
And one of the stories that we have on the website today from over the weekend is on McCoy. So if you guys want to get to know him a little bit better, check out how he feels about Miami right now. Make sure you read that story. But it is looking like there's a chance that he could be one of the first commitments of this recruiting class from Miami. I would say if they get two of the three, would you agree, Izubee, it's a win? If they can get two of those three guys that –
I would say, there's funny thing is they all played football together growing up on the same team, the Miami Garden Ravens. So we're talking to some of the coaches, after the junior day and say, hey, if we get some of those Miami Garden receivers, we'll be just fine because that group's coming with, LaWayne McCoy, Jeremiah Smith, JoJo Trader, and Chance Robinson. So I'm just thinking, imagine a 10-year-old me trying to guard all four of those guys on the field and just, the talent that they bring, the immense talent. And they all kind of relate the same message, kind of, hey, we love playing with each other, keeping this Miami Gardens Ravens group together. So I feel like if they land, I'd say 2 of the 4, 3 of the 4, it's a win for Miami, keeping those highly touted guys home.
I just want to expound on that real quick. I really think Miami needs to land, because we talked about this on the message board last week. I really think Miami has to land 3 out of those 4 guys in a talent class or in a recruiting class that this 2024 class is really, really heavy on receiver talent. It's a lot lighter in a lot of other areas. Quite frankly, as far as quarterbacks go, it's pretty heavy at the top. After that, it's a little bit lighter. But this is a really heavy receiver class. And quite frankly, it's a down year for talent in the state of Florida. I think Florida has the 4th most recruits in the On 300 behind Texas, California, and Georgia. And so with this kind of talent dip that we're seeing, which is definitely just a 1-year dip, Miami's getting really, really lucky. They have 4 incredibly talented receivers, within an hour drive of their backyard. Miami has to land at least 3 of the 4 of those guys, I think, if they want to say, hey, we landed a good receiver class this year, especially with the fact that they only signed 2 receivers in last year's class.
All right, Stephen, while you're on a roll there, tell us a little bit about Under Armour Orlando. What jumped out to you up there on your little road trip on Sunday?
You mean besides the fact that I really need to start wearing sunscreen? No, there was a lot. There was quite a bit going on at Under Armour Orlando. I had a chance to catch up with Jeremiah Smith and JoJo Trader up there. They were not competing, but they were there with some of their fellow Chaminade teammates who were competing, just basically to hang out, support them, and, collect their swag bags too, because, why not if you're an Under Armour All-American? I mean, heck, I'd be doing the exact same thing. But did have a chance to chat with those guys after they made, apparently what ended up being kind of a covert visit to Florida State over the weekend. I can't remember if it was Jeremiah Smith or JoJo Trader who said this, but I asked, one of the two of them, why they decided to go over to Florida State this weekend when there were so many different schools that were really pushing for that March 4th visit date. Because keep in mind, Alabama was pushing to get Jeremiah Smith to campus on March 4th too, and apparently he ended up picking the Noles over them. But I think it was JoJo Trader who, I asked him, hey, so why'd you go? And he basically more or less, and I'm paraphrasing here, said, they asked me, and so I was like, yeah, okay, I'll go, just real nonchalantly like that. So what to make of that specifically, I'm really not totally sure, but from what they told us, Florida State really did try to pull out all the stops for them. Florida State was a school that kind of wasn't really super high in the running for those guys, especially with Jeremiah Smith. It really felt like, Ohio State's up there, Miami's up there too. Florida State came in, tried to make a push. Now, the good news for Miami fans is going to be that Jeremiah Smith still says Miami is ahead of Florida State. And part of that reason is Kevin Beard. He likes Kevin Beard a lot, and Kevin Beard's put a lot of effort into recruiting him. Kevin Beard's also done the exact same thing with JoJo Trader, and so has Shannon Dawson. Shannon Dawson's putting time in with both of those guys too, because it seems like this staff really does understand what we were just talking about, is that Jeremiah Smith and JoJo Trader, whenever Miami in a year where Miami really needs receivers, to have two elite level receivers just within an hour's drive of you, and then to also have Chance Robinson up at St. Thomas Aquinas, and also LaWayne McCoy too. These are guys that Miami really, really has to land. Just some other quick stuff that I'll try to keep fairly brief. Had a chance to catch up with DeAndre Robinson too. Afterward, he said that Miami made a pretty good impression of him on the junior day visit. He also headed up to Orlando. Stacey Gage is another guy who's continuing to hear from Miami semi-regularly, but an under-the-radar prospect who I think is really going to end up – I'm not sure if surprise is necessarily the right word, but maybe a kid who I think has a good chance to end up at Miami that maybe some people haven't really heard of yet. Is going to be Chris Wheatley-Humphrey, a running back from Dillard. Miami's been pushing hard for him. He's currently unranked, but I feel like that's probably going to change sometime in the near future. He was at this camp as well. Miami remains really high on him. They've made a very concerted effort to talk to him. He was at the March 4th Junior Day yesterday, and then before that, Miami also snuck him in, or was able to squeeze in, I should say, a quick unofficial visit in late January before that dead period in February.
All right, so all in all, just an absolutely crazy weekend. I've got a couple elements here that I thought I'd share with you guys. Somebody took video of Mario Cristobal's Junior Day speech to recruits. Thought you guys might want to get a quick look at that. We got about a 2-minute snippet of it. Let me play that right now.
To make sure you have a great experience. Number two, I don't want to get into slideshows. We're building a massive building. You know what I mean? We're building a ginormous 7-story, one-of-a-kind type of place. And I don't want to get into all that kind of stuff. I just want to talk for a few minutes and introduce our staff. You guys good with that?
Yes, sir.
All right, when we pop in later and I see you guys, I'll show you some stuff and we'll get into that. But I want to get to the most important part, is the people and the place, okay? My name is Mario Cristobal, born and raised here in Miami, Florida.
Yeah, buddy.
I love being from Miami. Yo hablo español también, yo soy cubano, okay, for those that know a little bit of Spanish. My parents are Cuban, and I have been honored to be able to come back home and be a part of this unbelievable situation and staff. And having played here during the days of multiple national titles, when this opportunity came up, it was once in a lifetime. And what was even more so of a lifetime opportunity was those guys, the men and women that surround this university, these student athletes, to make Miami what it is and what we're on our way to do, okay? So, you guys watch practice?
Yes, sir.
How come nobody jumped out there and got rep? I know they like the doggies in here. No? You guys enjoy practice? All right, day one's always a challenge, right? You don't have pads on, but you can still practice fast, right? You can still stay up on your feet. You can still get better at technique and fundamentals. And hopefully you got a chance to see all these coaches do their thing. These guys are elite professionals, but even more importantly, they're elite human beings, right? And that's really important. I got two knuckleheads, 11 and 13. Human tornadoes, crazy. And one day they're going to play somewhere. I want them around great teachers. I want them to be on a great team if possible. I want them around elite human beings that are great teachers and are going to do right by my little dudes. To teach them how to do things right, to hold them accountable, and God forbid on a rough day, make sure that they're like.
So there's a little bit of a glimpse at Mario Cristobal, the recruiter, and Junior Day Stephen and Izubee is a big moment for a football program, because that's really, in a lot of cases, your first opportunity to spend extended time with those kids. And you guys conducted a lot of exit interviews after the junior day. What was it, Izubee, you go first. Was it your feeling that everybody, exited having a really good time?
Yeah, I got that feeling from most of the guys I spoke with. The one that stood out to me was what Lewayne McCoy said. He said after a 5-minute conversation with Kevin Beard, he said he felt like he learned so much just within that 5 minutes. And everyone really just said each position coach, the position they played, really sat down and talked to them and said, hey, this is how we do things over here. This is why we want you. This is why we need you. And each guy really left with that impression. Said, okay, hey, maybe Miami is a place for me. Just how genuine, just how personable all these coaches are. And it's a weird thing that I thought too. I'm like, wow, they're not preaching about, oh, you're the best at this, you're the best at that. It's just, hey, we're real people too, and we can talk to you on that level. It's not all about football. It's about who you are as a person outside of the football field.
Stephen, any thoughts from you on that regard?
Yeah, for me, something that I saw pretty consistently was the staff kind of showing a lot of these, really top priority guys. Hey, this specifically is how we can develop you. These are the ways in which we can teach you how to grow your game, which I'm seeing is becoming more and more and more important. NIL is great. Facilities are great. All that stuff is really fantastic. A close relationship with the coaches is always fantastic. It's always a plus. But at the end of the day, for so many of these top recruits, it really is going to come down to, which staff do these guys trust to develop them into NFL stars? Because these kids recognize that's where the real money is. That's where their future really is playing in the NFL. And I think for guys like Kevin Beard to be able to come in and say, hey, this is the vision that I have for you. This is the way that I'm going to make you better. Or Alex Mirabal doing the exact same thing, because Mirabal has an excellent reputation both as a recruiter and a developer. I think that that's something that is going to pay dividends.
All right, so big weekend. We got tons of coverage of every element of it on the website. If you haven't had a chance to read everything, carve out some time and do so. But there was something else going on campus Saturday. An absolutely amazing moment. Izubee and Stephen, you guys snuck in there and got to see it. And Miami actually won the ACC regular season championship after blowing it, quite frankly, 3 or 4 times during the season and losing games they should not have lost. They tried to lose this one, another one they shouldn't have lost yesterday, but they did hold on. They beat Pittsburgh and claimed the ACC regular season championship, and that set off an amazing celebration. I'm going to throw it up on the screen right now. I was joking with some of the administrators. I'm like, listen, I know about this $150 million building and about another $50 million that Mario's spending and everything else. I said, it's time to flood the basketball program with some of that money and, give them whatever they need. I mean, what an amazing accomplishment by those guys. And they head up to the ACC tournament this week as the #1 seed. And, Zoom, you've covered a lot of basketball this year. I've gotten to know these guys a little bit. And what was it like for you to just watch them experience that on Saturday and have a fantastic conclusion to their regular season?
Yeah, I felt like I was on the team, kind of, watch them celebrate from being, at every game, being at every press conference, the one loss, all the wins. So it was just nice to see these guys, hard work pay off, because I was there the opening practice that they had, and these guys were, all had that same goal on their mind. Hey, we're gonna win the ACC, we're gonna win the ACC tournament, and then we're gonna go on and make a deep run, in the NCAA tournament. So just seeing all their hard work pay off, the fans storming the court. It's funny. I joked around. I was mad. I was like, "Hey, do you think they stormed the court today?" And he's like, "I don't know." And then just seeing everybody storm the court, seeing Zimler smile, just saying how the attendance is something that he's always hoped for, and watching Miami, grow as a basketball school is just something that makes you happy, and a good story for the Hurricanes basketball program.
Yeah, they've done an amazing job getting the student body engaged. I mean, this is the best that's ever been in the history of the program. These students, they show up in force. They're part of the game. They influence the game. Now, we're at the part of the season where you don't have a margin of error anymore. You lose in Greensboro this week, you don't win the ACC tournament. Okay, then you're going to go to March Madness. I expect Miami to be maybe a 3 or 4 seed, I think, at this point. Obviously your season's over if you lose. And I think this team is capable of reaching the Final Four, but they also have a propensity to just kill themselves. I mean, everyone thinks rebounding is a big problem for this team. They were annihilating Pittsburgh on the boards in that game on Saturday. Norchad Omier is just an absolute beast if he could just stay out of foul trouble. But they had, I think, 17 turnovers in the game that totally negated everything they were doing on the boards. Against Florida State a week earlier, they blew a 25-point lead and ended up losing the game. They lost to Florida State and Georgia Tech, 2 of the worst teams in the ACC, along the way to winning the ACC championship. If they just took care of business and didn't have these lapses in some of these games, they win the league easily, Izubee. And my concern for this team going into the postseason is, can they focus for a full 40 minutes? These are going to be tight games. I mean, this is March Madness, and hopefully they get a decent draw in round 1. But once you get past that first game and avoid an upset, the degree of difficulty starts going up quite a bit, and you can't have these lapses. You can't turn the ball over 17 times and dribble yourself into bad spots on the court. They need to clean up their game a little bit here in the next few days before they get into the postseason if they are going to accomplish any of their goals here.
Yeah, something Coach Larinaga always preached during the season, say, hey, the regular season is a marathon, and then when we get to tournament time, it's a sprint. And when you're sprinting, if you slip up one bad mistake, and that's the race for you. So that's kind of what I'm hoping Miami doesn't do, is slip up in this race. And like you mentioned, in late game situations, it gets a little rocky. I think they're up by 7 or 8 with a minute to go. They're having trouble inbounding the ball.
I think they had 3 turnovers, right?
Nigel Pack steps out of bounds. It's just these little things. These will cost you in the NCAA tournament. Thankfully Blake Hinson, that last shot, bounced off the rim and it fall. But just late game situations when you're up 8 or 7, people think, hey, this game is wraps. But even myself, I'm watching this team all year. I'm like, okay, I know Pittsburgh is 100% still in this, because kind of down the stretch, I feel like Miami falters a little bit, kind of stumbles. And I saw someone mention on the message board, in late game situations, Isaiah Wong is kind of iffy when it comes to that. And that's something I've kind of noticed too, when they're in the, half court sets, we're not running up and down the court. Miami kind of look a little stagnant and still with the offense, not as creative. So I just feel like if Miami can keep the gas on the pedal and say the closing 5 minutes of the game, because their other 35 team looks like one of the best teams in the country, no doubt. But in that last 5 minutes of games is kind of where it scares me for the Hurricanes. And I feel like if they continue that trend of having shaky closing minutes, that'll be, their kryptonite in the NCAA tournament.
Teams have clearly spent a lot of time scouting Isaiah Wong during the offseason before this season, because he is having a much tougher time scoring the way he likes to score and is capable of scoring. They are doing a much better job this year of defending him. And, the other thought I'll throw out there is, those of you that are doing tournament brackets next week, I would remember this Pittsburgh team, man. They play their butts off, and they're athletic, and they got a couple guys that can flat stroke the 3-point shot. I think they have a chance to be a force in the postseason. I mean, there'll be a few others in the ACC, but I'm expecting Pitt to be a team to be reckoned with a little bit here in the postseason. All right, well, that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. We thank you so much for starting your day out with us. Like I said, a ton, probably 35 stories in the last 48 hours have been posted at CaneSport.com. So make sure you take the time to catch up on everything that we've covered this past weekend, and I think you'll be happy that you did. So for Izubee Charles, Stephen Wagner, and Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you again, everybody. We'll see you next time.